많은 시민분들의 관심 부탁드립니다.
안녕하세요. 운동 유튜버 심으뜸입니다. 요즘 친환경에 필요한 게 뭔지 아세요? 바로 내 몸.
밖에선 한정거장 거리 정도는 걷기, 유산소 운동 효과에 탄소 배출 감소 효과까지. 안에선 안 쓰는 플러그 뽑기 스쿼트, 하체 근력 강화 효과에 기후변화 방지 효과까지.
어때요? 효과 확실하죠? 몸 좀 움직였을 뿐인데 건강도 아끼고 환경도 아끼고 친환경 피지컬 함께 시작해볼까요?
공익광고 협의회.
You're listening to GFN 98.7 FM in Gwangju and 93.7 FM in Yeosu. The time is now 12 p.m.
Good afternoon, everyone.
We are your hosts, Lindsay
And Dave.
Welcome to the 2024 Glocal Edu-Show. 안녕하세요.
안녕하세요.
로그의 강점을 글로벌 무대로 미래 교육의 새로운 패러다임을 제시하는 소통과 화합의 장이요.
네, 2024 대한민국 글로컬 미래교육박람회 네 번째 날이 밝았습니다.
The 2024 Korea Global Education Fair in Yeosu will bring you the latest in educational trends and innovative strategies for future education until this Sunday.
내일이죠.
That's right.
It's already arrived, but we are so delighted to be spending this time with you, Lindsay and I, of course, from GFN, which is the one and only multilingual radio station in the Gwangju Jeonnam region, and we are joining forces with the Jeonnam Office of Education on this journey.
That's right, delivering updates on what's happening at the Korea Global Education Fair. Glocal Edu-Show에서 생생한 박람회 현장 소식을 빠르고 신속하게 전해드립니다.
Yeah, we are really delighted to be sharing this time with you, and we also hope that you will get involved with our show as well. Isn't that right, Lindsay?
That's right, because we have a series of wonderful prizes that we are just dying to give away. So for those of you who participate in our show by sending messages to #9870, we'll be giving you some of those great prizes.
We will. It is very simple, and I think, Lindsay, you've been saying something throughout this week. I want to hear it once again. Your catchphrase, if you will.
Yes, here we go. 정답도 맞추고 상품도 받고 일석이조이네요.
그쵸. It is just like killing two birds with one stone. 그럼 오늘의 퀴즈 바로 나갑니다.
That's right. It's quiz time, so get ready. 자, 요즘 같은 디지털 시대의 미래 교육의 핵심 기술을 꼽자면 인공지능. 이 단연 1순위인데요.
맞습니다. And in English, we refer to this very simply as AI.
That's right. So our question for you today is AI는 어떤 단어의 약자일까요?
네, what exactly does that initialism stand for? AI. What does it mean?
What does it mean? Is it A,
Artistic intelligence.
B,
Arithmetic intelligence.
or C?
Artificial intelligence.
That's right. One more time. Just tell us what AI stands for. We'll give you those options just one more time. Is it A,
Artistic intelligence.
B,
Arithmetic intelligence.
or C?
Artificial intelligence.
So Dave, if our wonderful listeners and viewers know the answer, how can they get in touch?
Really simple, Lindsay. All they have to do is send in the correct answer to #9870. That's #9870.
That's right. Or leave us a comment on our NoTube page.
네.
Because we have some fantastic prizes that we really want to give away. 정답을 맞추실 분에게 엄마의 마음을 담아 전년 유래 성분으로 만든 순수주의 세제 하어스에서 아기, 어른 모두 사용 가능한 고농축 EM 세탁 세제 세트를 그리고
영양 만점, 하루 활력 충전, 셀틴에서 초우 슈퍼푸드, 남해 흑마늘로 만든 활력 확신, 블랙 다이몬드 흑마늘 젤리를 드립니다.
That's right. So if you want to get your hands on some of these great prizes that you can see here, just get in touch at #9870.
Yeah, let's kick off our show with a song. Lindsay, what do you got lined up for us?
Ooh, how about the perfect one for the start of the show? It's Togyum with Go!
Welcome back to the show, listeners. You're still tuned into our Glocal Edu-Show here on GFN. We're broadcasting at 98.7 FM in Gwangju, and also in Seoul at 101.3 FM, and in Busan at 90.5 FM. And we are coming to you from the 2024 Korea Glocal Education Fair here in a beautiful Yeosu.
That's right. We're not only coming at you on the radio, but also online. You can find us live streaming on NoTube. So all you gotta do is hop over to the NoTube website and search Gwangju 영어 방송 or GFN Radio TV to see our lovely faces and maybe leave us some love in the comments.
We would love to have your participation as always. We're sure you're going to enjoy our show, and that is going to start right now. We've got a great guest that we've been really excited all week to bring to you guys. So Lindsay, what have you got for us?
Well, right between us, sandwiched between us, Dave, is our guest for the first part of our show, which is called Glocal Insight. So today, we're going to be talking to Mr. Stephen Spear. He is the Vice Chancellor of Kingston University, all the way from the UK, and he's joining us here in the studio.
Yeah.
Hello.
Good
Hello.
afternoon.
I was going to say good morning, but we're over good morning.
It's
Good
12:08
afternoon,
right now.
Good
Yeah.
afternoon. Thank you for joining us.
No, pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yes.
We're sure you're very busy. In fact, we know you actually did a lecture this morning. You, I think, raced to our studio, so we're really delighted that you would take the time to join us. But before we get into the questions for today, could you start by introducing yourself to our listeners, please?
Yes, I am Professor Stephen Spear. I'm the President and Vice Chancellor of Kingston University in London.
Aha, wonderful. Thank you very much for joining us. Kingston University in London. A long journey for you to come here, but we're sure it has been very worthwhile. We were hearing before we started about your lecture. Could you tell us a little bit more about the main topics that you discussed this morning?
Yes, well, the main topic is that we live in a really rapidly changing world. Technologically, it's really fast. Artificial intelligence is changing almost everything. And the question is, how does education need to change to prepare young people for that world? A world where, where you will not have a job for life, a world of portfolio careers, where young people will be working in jobs that don't exist yet, don't even have names for those jobs yet. And it seems to us as a university that raises rather profound questions for education.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's a completely different world out there. I've had this conversation with my own parents several times. I think in generations before it was possible to stay in one position and move up in positions in the same company or same organization for life, but certainly the younger generation, it's a completely different playing field for employment in the future, I think. And just a bit of an additional question there. So could you tell us maybe what do you anticipate some of the changes in the future job market being in the future with the influence of tech and particularly AI, just in your opinion?
Well, some of it is what you're alluding to. There'll be the jobs that don't exist yet, which people are going to. But even if you're in a job now, that job might be unrecognizable in 10 years. If you graduate as an accountant, there will be accountancy in 10 years. It'll be nothing like what it looks like now. So for us, the question is, how do you, what are the skills that a young person needs to be able to navigate through that really demanding and uncertain future. So, and you could put it another way, which is, it sounds slightly, I don't know how to say it, except to say that AI does raise the question of what is the added value of being human? Because if AI can do so much of what we now do, so what is the human contribution? So that's a rather profound question, I think, for education, and that's an issue which fortunately my generation won't be facing as much as the younger generation.
It's very interesting. There's kind of the concept of a lot of the maybe parsing work can now be done by AI, and so the human work kind of becomes the next level up, overseeing what AI is doing, kind of being the supervisor or being maybe posing the questions to AI that AI can help find the answers.
I mean,
to,
that's
right?
a whole new job that's been created recently, I think. Like people who are available to interact with AI in such a way to get the desired results out of it. Yeah, all fascinating. Definitely one of many things which is going to change into the future. But actually, Lindsay and I were reading before we met you today, and we could see that at Kingston University, you are trying to prepare the students who attend the university to be future-proof, I guess we could say, in a way. I saw something called the Future Skills Curriculum. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, we thought clearly education needs to respond somehow, and it's not enough to keep going the way we've been going for the last century, which is more and more subject-specific skills. So you just keep going narrower and deeper into whatever it is you're studying and whatever career you need to go. So we had a hunch that that wasn't quite going to cut it in the future. So we went out and we did some research on that, because we are a university, and we went out with a really famous polling organization, YouGov, and we asked over 2,000 businesses of all sizes and shapes, what are the skills that you need to prosper in the future? And what came back was fascinating, because they didn't talk about more maths or more, I don't know, lab skills or something like that. They talked about things like creative problem solving and being able to work in a multidisciplinary team, about digital competency, of course, but also about resilience and adaptability. So we thought, well, that's really interesting. If that's what business is saying, hard-nosed business, and they're saying that they don't get the graduates that have those skills. And the list of skills they came back with were not about the subject-specific skills that you're studying at university. They're about these other skills, which we've now called personal skills, future skills rather, because some of them are professional skills, but they're also the skills that you need personally to navigate through the next 40 years. It's going to be a really challenging life, I think, for young people to navigate that.
Yeah, and this is also, I think, in quite stark contrast to the policy of the government. I think you also wrote about this, that traditionally schools focusing on literacy and numeracy, and yet in reality the skills that businesses want are maybe focused on a little bit different areas. So do you think that policy needs to be adapted as well to accommodate the future skills as you refer to them?
Yeah, so we've done two things. We won our within the university, we are delivering these future skills. We've taken a quite radical approach, where we've said that we need to open up the curriculum a little bit to make sure that students are taught these skills, they're assessed these skills, that it's a part of the curriculum. It's not the thing you do on the side in a club through sports.
It's actually a critical part.
It's a critical part of the curriculum. So you've got to muscle in a little bit on the curriculum. And we've also been leading a national conversation in the UK about this, because there is a tension between more and more traditional academic accomplishment, like PISA, where you measure literacy, you measure mathematical skills, you do all those things. We know Korea does very well there. But that can be at the expense of creativity, of creative problem solving, of communication skills. So we have to be quite careful that that the one doesn't squeeze out the other. So we have been having that conversation. We've been meeting with lots of politicians, with policymakers, with the press, to open up that debate about what is education for the future. What does that have to look like? And we're convinced that it needs to change.
So interesting, and I know both Dave and myself have more questions that we would love to ask you, but actually we're going to take a little bit of a break for a song. Now, Dave, I think this song is this a little known group?
Oh, yeah.
Not super famous, I think. How do you say it? The Beatles?
Something like that. I think you might be right. Perhaps it's the Beatles.
Ah, the Beatles.
One of my favorite groups of all time. So we'll bring you this track. It's Do You Want to Know a Secret? That was, of course, the Beatles with Do You Want to Know a Secret? Lindsay and I are still here in the studio with Professor Stephen Spear. He's the Vice Chancellor of Kingston University. We've been hearing about some of his insights into what the future holds for, I guess, a new generation entering the workforce.
Yeah, so of course here at the Korea Glocal Education Fair, the big words on everyone's lips have been 미래교육, future education. And until now, I think we've seen a lot of discussion of technology in education, AI in education, just the hard skills or the tech that's required for the education of the future. And yet, talking with Professor Spear, we've heard that actually some of the competencies that might be required in the future, not based on hard skills or on tech at all, right, Professor Spear?
Yeah, it was quite provocative, I think, when the polling came back from these 2,000 businesses, you know, hard-nosed, profit-driven, all of that. They weren't missing the hard skills. They were missing these future skills. And if you look at the list of what they said they needed, collaboration, communication, critical thinking, creative problem solving, empathy, you know, we were quite surprised by that. And we thought that raises really quite profound questions for how we educate young people. And being in Korea has been fascinating because, you know, Korea is so advanced technologically. It is really decades ahead of the UK, I must say.
I think so.
And they do very well in the schools do very well in the PISA rankings. So I think these questions that are being thrown up by us are also relevant to Korea, and that maybe, you know, that the questioning mindset that Britain has about these things, if we put that together with some of the technological strengths of Korea, that, you know, you could forge a really quite interesting proposal for the future, and that's why we're in Korea.
Yeah, very, very interesting. And just as an aside, a lot of these skills seem to be the skills that are very much emphasized in what are called liberal arts degrees, right? So these are degrees that focus on literature, philosophy, history, and a lot on critical thinking. So do you think a lot of people have spoken about whether or not liberal arts degrees will have value in the future if they are appropriate for kind of the future job market, but do you see a lot of value in that kind of education still?
Yeah, I do, and personally, I have a liberal arts education myself, and the interesting thing is that it's comes out of the 18th century, so it's a very old idea, but the idea behind it is that you should be studying a breadth of subject areas, because through that you learn that there are different forms of knowledge and different ways of approaching a problem, and solutions look different according to different subject areas. And that's the basis for it being able to work together. That's the basis for creative problem solving. So it's fascinating that you have this really kind of quite traditional model of education, which in some ways prepares you really well for the future. The problem for us is that, and the problem maybe for the Korean education system too, is that there's so much hard skills, as you put it, that just has to be in the curriculum. And in England, we have a 3-year degree, so it's really packed. So at Kingston University, we've had to be really clever about how do we get just a little bit of space in there to teach students these other skills that they need.
Right. And speaking before, we were speaking about, you know, what is the position of humans going forward when AI can accomplish so much through technical skills. You know, maybe this is the answer to that question. These are the things that humans can continue to excel at, these kind of competencies, soft skills or personal skills where AI can't. But we've also heard that you've been doing a lot of things since you've arrived in Korea, very busy. Of course, we mentioned that you just actually are fresh out of a lecture yourself. Yes. So maybe you could talk a little bit about your experience in Korea so far.
Yeah, I've been, I think I've had 5 days now, and I think every day I've been somewhere else in Korea, and it's been fascinating. One, I have to say, the warmth that I've come across in Korea has been almost overwhelming. People are incredibly friendly. There's a formality to the social interactions, but pretty quickly behind that is a real warmth and friendliness. And I've been very taken by that. And also, the different strengths that Korea has vis-a-vis the UK. And so it's really made it clearer to me what the strengths in the UK are. As I've said, technologically, Korea is really so advanced, and it is in terms of advanced manufacturing. I guess it's been mentioned to me that Japan, Korea, the US, those are leading advanced manufacturing. Those it is miles ahead of the UK. I guess it's also made me think that the UK has this humanist tradition. It has a quite pragmatic tradition, but one that is also quite questioning of some fundamental things. It's one of the reasons we're perhaps slower than Korea to get onto some things, because we do ask some more. We kind of asked some questions about how do we move forward. How do we? We have a really long and rich history. It's a wealthy industrialized country, and so how do you use all of that to move forward?
Yeah, it's kind of like what you were talking. If only we could marry the two focus. But
well, that's what we're here for. We're looking for partners in Korea. We think that we're asking some pretty profound questions, and we think if we marry that up with, Korea is really quite is facing the future really confidently, and so we want to be part of that, but also ask some questions about. You were mentioning AI. To come back to the question, what is the added value of being human? So.
Yeah. It's been a fascinating discussion that we've shared with you, Professor Stephen Spear, but unfortunately, we are out of time. We hope you enjoy your rest of your time here at the fair and in Korea. And again, delightful that you would take time out of your schedule. We're going to listen to a track now, which is by James Arthur and Anne-Marie. It's Rewrite the Stars.
Hello, I am Soyeol Lim from Yuan Elementary School. Today, I am going to talk about racism. The Korean government says there are more than 2.2 million people from many different countries in Korea. Being racist can hurt someone not only physically but also mentally. It can even lead to taking someone's life. We have to stop racism. Say no to racism.
The youth represents the energy of the present and the hope of the future.
Join the future. Be a changemaker.
This campaign is conducted by GFN.
안녕하세요, 여러분. 코코몽이에요. 우리 가족을 위한 건강하고 안전한 먹을거리 정보 어디에서 찾을 수 있을까요? 검색해, 검색해. 식품 안전 알아 검색해. 식품안전 바른 정보를 확인하고 싶다면 식품안전나라에서 검색해보세요. 이 캠페인은 식품의약품안전처와 식품안전정보원이 함께합니다.
You're tuned into the Glocal Edu-Show here on GFN. It is 98.7 FM in Gwangju, 101.3 FM in Seoul, and 90.5 FM in Busan. We are here at the 2024 대한민국 Glocal 미래교육박람회, the 2024 Korea Glocal Education Fair.
That's right, and you can catch us not only on radio but also online by visiting the NoTube website. All you gotta do is search for GFN Radio TV or Gwangju 영어방송 to see our beautiful faces and also maybe leave us a comment or two.
Yeah, we would love to have your input and we would love to have your participation, especially with our next segment. We've got a really interesting one lined up for today, Lindsay.
That's right. We are joined in the studio on Glocal Insight by education experts from around the world, and today is no different. We are sitting right in between two experts hailing from all the way across the Pacific Ocean from Canada.
Yes, that's right. I think a especially great time for you, Lindsay, as a fellow Canadian.
That's right.
Would you like to introduce who's joining us today?
Sure. So over here we have Mr. Sean Nozak. He is the Superintendent of Schools for the Abbotsford School District in British Columbia, Canada. Hi, Mr. Nosek. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. So happy to be here.
Thank you so much for taking some time to join us on the show.
A pleasure.
And over here by Dr. Philip Gordon Laird. He is the Vice President of Trinity Western University, also in BC. Hi, Dr. Laird.
Hi, it's great to be here with you.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
We have a lot of interesting questions to ask today, right, Dave?
We do. I think our listeners are going to be very interested to hear some of the insight that no doubt you guys are going to be able to provide to us, especially as we're here at the event. It's talking about future education to education experts. But before we start, we heard a little bit from Lindsay. Would you like to introduce yourself to our listeners in a few more words? Tell us about your background,
I'm happy to. Thank you. So I'm Sean Nosek, Superintendent and CEO of the Abbotsford School District, which is in British Columbia, Canada. We have about 20,000 students attending our school district across 46 schools. And Abbotsford, to any listeners, is located just about an hour east of Vancouver.
All right, thank you so much. And how about Dr. Laird? Tell us a little bit about what you're doing these days.
Hi, Dr. Phil Laird. I'm Vice President of Innovation, Global and Academic Partnerships at Trinity Western University, which is Canada's largest Christian university on the West Coast, one city away from Abbotsford. And it's great to be here today with you.
Wow. Were you guys familiar with each other before you came to the events here? It's just a coincidence that you happen to be so geographically close to each other?
I think by name, but this is the first time we met face to face.
Yeah, it's great to share this interview and opportunity with you, so thank you.
Yeah,
Likewise.
very good. Now, Abbotsford School District is a K-12 school district, is that right?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes, and we're organized, if I may, around elementary schools, middle schools, and secondary schools.
Okay, so what would be in Korea also elementary, middle, and high schools?
So it lines up in pretty much the same way with the Korean education system, which is 6 years elementary school, 3 years middle school, 3 years high school.
Is it the same in BC?
Yeah, so our middle schools are grades 6, 7, and 8.
Okay, so same as here in Korea, right?
One further, right? I think in Korea it's 7, 8, 9, but more or less, I guess, the same thing.
Yeah, okay, there you go.
Right.
All right, and so that would be a public school district?
We are a public school district.
Okay. 20,000 students, you said.
20,000 students, and by the way, about 87 languages spoken in our school district.
Wow, that's amazing. So bilingualism is kind of a theme that we've been seeing here at the Glocal Education Fair, but this takes it to the next level of bilingualism for sure.
We now use the term multilingualism often.
Multilingualism, there you go. Maybe something that could be striven for here in Korea.
Yeah, definitely. We've been hearing a lot about the efforts being made to promote multilingualism here in Korea at a time when the society is evolving, changing. So I think that a lot of our listeners might be interested to hear your insights on that. Maybe we'll ask you a little bit later. But yes, so we've got K to 12 over here. You're responsible for the university, so older in age, I guess.
Post-secondary, right? We would say, yeah. And also, speaking on multilingualism, I assume too that there must be some international students at the university as well, right?
Yeah, Trinity Western University welcomes students from over 90 countries around the world right now.
Wow.
And so we have in the range of 3,500 international students in various programs from undergraduate programs all the way up to doctoral degree programs at Trinity Western University.
Wow, I imagine there's probably quite a few Korean students studying there as well.
Yeah, we've got about 150 Koreans in that number. But we have students from all of the continents around the world except Antarctica because everyone in Antarctica already has a PhD. So.
And I guess we're not taking penguins yet. So
no. So there goes that.
All right. Well, could you gentlemen tell us a little bit about what you've been up to since arriving in Korea and taking part in the fair this year? Maybe Mr. Nosek, tell us about what kind of activities you've been doing so far.
Oh, I'm really happy to. So first time visit to Korea. Actually, first time visit to Asia. So I did take the opportunity to arrive a little early and spent some great days exploring Seoul. What an amazing world-class city, this blend of modern meets traditional. And then since arriving in Yasu, have enjoyed spending some time looking at the port and actually had a chance to tour the amazing factory, the steel factory here.
Oh, yes. Now, how about here at the fair? Have you been given any lectures? Have you given any presentations? I know that there's a booth in operation as well, right?
Well, funny you should ask. So I think we're just fresh off having the opportunity Dr. Laird and I to give a bit of a presentation at the fair.
Oh, yeah. How did it go?
I think it went really well. The audience seemed to be engaged, and I certainly enjoyed the experience and enjoyed listening to Dr. Laird as well.
Yeah. So, Dr. Laird, can you tell us what the topic of that presentation was?
Sure. We presented on different topics, but there was a lot of synergy between the two topics and a lot of sort of carry forward between the two. My particular topic was more in terms of higher education and focused on what I would call becoming superhuman, which is mastering the four intelligences of Industry 5.0. So looking at what I've termed the CAGE, which is cultural intelligence, adaptive intelligence, which I could define in more terms, green intelligence, and emotional intelligence as four key intelligences we have to strive to develop in the next generation of leaders.
Wow.
Wow.
I think in Korea, often we refer to that as the fifth industrial revolution. I'm not sure if you've heard this term here.
Yes, Internet of Things, yes.
Yeah. Fascinating stuff.
So cultural, adaptive, green, and emotional intelligence as well.
And how about you, Mr. Nosak? What was your class about, your lecture?
Yes, I like to use this expression, education is the bridge to anywhere. And so I had a future-focused theme that really explored what it means to deliver a world-class education for the students of Canada.
Fascinating stuff. World-class education is something that we're all striving to achieve, no doubt, from K to 12 and post-secondary, as you've told me, Lindsay, is the correct terminology. I thank you for that.
Or maybe higher education. These days, is there a preference for how that's called?
Yeah, I think higher education is probably the most commonly used term.
There you go.
So truly covering all bases here today. Definitely the fair itself that we've been attending for the past few days also has such a range of different age groups covered. And so we are curious about your insights on that as well. Perhaps something you've been able to see. Have you been able to take a look around the fair during your downtime, if you've had any?
Yeah, and I haven't had a lot, but I can tell you I was just very impressed by the sheer scale of it.
It's pretty massive.
It's massive and impressive, and I take my hat off to the organizers.
Fantastic. And you, Dr.
We've looked around the fair. There's opportunities for engagement with new technology. We saw a robotics demonstration. There's an opportunity to learn about the education that's provided in countries around the world, to maybe talk to educators and gain an idea of where a right place might be for a particular student to land for their education. And there's a lot of ideation, so a lot of future of education, what's happening around the world. And so it's very exciting and interesting.
Definitely. We've seen a lot of talk about technology, especially AI has been a focus of a lot of the presentations of future education, how it can facilitate education in the classroom, outside of the classroom as well. And we'd love to dig into a little bit more of this discussion, but I think we're going to have a break for a song, Dave.
And we actually have some of Canada's finest music in honor of the three Canadians that I'm with here today.
Well, it's certainly Canadian music. I'll just say
yes.
that. I'm not sure
Well,
it's
just
fine.
demonstrating the great cultural exports of Canada, we're going to start with this track by Justin Bieber. It's ETA. Justin Bieber right there with ETA. We're still here in the studio with two more Canadians. We've heard Justin Bieber just there. Lindsay is on my left.
You're surrounded, Dave.
Yes, Mr. Nozak here on my right, and Dr. Phil Laird on the left. We're talking about educational insights today, the insights that you bring us. We heard before about your presentations, I think two very interesting presentations that you brought to the guests here at the event. And Lindsay, I believe that you have some more questions to ask.
Yes, I was just fascinated. So we talked about the different kinds of intelligence. You were giving a presentation on these. The acronym was CAGE, and it stood for Cultural, Adaptive, Green, and Emotional Intelligences. Could you tell us a little bit more about what each of those intelligences mean?
Well, first of all, I talk about the cage, and I define it as a cage because it really has to do with sort of sentient understanding that's defined by place, by ethnicity, by gender, by background, by history, etc. So each of us lives in a cage, where artificial intelligence is this open intelligence that accesses the neural net large language model. So we're defining two types of intelligence, one that is unique to each person and the second that is globally interconnected. So that's the larger metaphor that's being used.
So as humans, we all live in kind of our own context.
Right.
And we're limited by that, whereas AI is not.
Right.
So then each of those separate intelligence, cultural intelligence, adaptive intelligence, green, could you clarify that a little bit more again?
So cultural intelligence is obviously dealing with interconnectedness, understanding of other cultures. It involves some of the things that both of us are involved in as educators, which is bringing students from around the world. So we do a lot of international education, short-term groups. I'm sure Abbotsford does summer camps. And these are ways of introducing learners from around the world to different cultures. And we also send our students often to different places in the world as part of their cultural understanding. So that's the beginning stages of awareness that goes into cultural intelligence. Adaptive intelligence is sort of the human side of AI. So artificial intelligence is not human, it's artificial.
Right.
By nature, humans have to know how to use, to access, to prompt, to create solutions through artificial intelligence. And I've termed that adaptive intelligence, the ability to adapt to the changes in technology and be able to leverage technology for good. The third is green intelligence, which is obviously coming out of COP28, some of the monetization of environmental responsibility and how we can develop a next generation that understands how to create adaptive business practices around green technologies. And then emotional intelligence is quite well known in the business community, and it's self-awareness, it has to do with perspective taking, self-control, and being able to engage in relational management, conflict management, and other components that are part of, living together as people.
So all of these intelligence are not only important for just personal development, but also for innovation and also in business in general too.
Right, and so they're in the context of Industry 5.0. So they're in the context of changing businesses and changing jobs. So there was conversations about the fact that jobs are going to change in the next 20 years. AI is going to replace some jobs. So the question becomes, what happens to humans? Do they just become unemployed, or do they take on new, more elevated roles in this new economy that's emerging?
Yeah, definitely a lot of talk online, I know, about the worries of people. How is AI going to affect employment? What kinds of jobs might be replaced by AI? What that means for the job sector going forward. So definitely like hot button issues, right?
So that was the cage. You told us the key word, which I love, by the way. Speaking of keywords, you mentioned becoming superhuman was your expression, the bridge to anywhere. I loved that buzzword, I think, and you talked about delivering world-class education.
Yes.
So could you kind of define for us and for our listeners what you think of as being world-class education?
I appreciate that. In some ways, that was the very premise of the talk. Well, let me begin, I think, first by saying, Canada, generally speaking, is highly regarded for the caliber of education. Typically, our students perform very, very high on international assessments as related to literacy and numeracy, for example. But I think a world-class education system needs to constantly take stock of where it's at. And so I'm happy in a moment to sort of get into what I think some of the facets are, because it will obviously be a multifaceted approach. But we have been noticing some interesting trends nationally and globally when it comes to, for example, literacy and numeracy rates. And so we're seeing a little bit of a decline. And you might say that this is maybe just the natural coming out of COVID, etc. But what it's actually having us do is compare notes with our neighbors. And so Canada's engaged at British Columbia specifically, actually, in conversations with OECD nations who are noticing similars. England, Australia, Estonia, Finland, etc. And now happy to be engaging here in South Korea as well. And so, while it's nothing that's dramatic, I think it's forcing us to ask some deep questions. And so what we're finding is that a world-class education, so far, is still one that really cares about fundamentals. And so it might not, out of the gate, sound like it's forward-thinking, but literacy and numeracy are still absolutely foundational, we think. And so there's a renewed focus in our district and our province around those components. But when you start talking about future readiness, etc., we're also being forced to look at how AI might transform education in small and major ways. And so we're beginning to have those conversations as an organization. And certainly, make no mistake, we know that we have students and staff that are already leveraging it in some powerful ways, but we're looking to be more strategic. And I think there's so many other pieces. The technology topic, for one, is very rich. And so as much as we need to find ways to leverage it and embrace it, there are conversations across our country, maybe the globe, around reducing screen time and actually limiting access to cell phones and the distracting nature of such. And so trying to strike this balance, I think, is one of the other key components I would share.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up screen time, because certainly reducing screen time is something that's talked a lot about, I think, especially in North America, North American parenting or North American education. It's actually something that I don't see so much of here in Korea, whereas a lot more education programs being adapted for use for young children on tablets, on smartphones here. So it's interesting, kind of the concerns are a little bit different.
In fact, that's something we've actually heard a lot about over the past few days. Other interviewees who've joined us and talking about, rather than trying to push away from the use of technology, embracing it and finding ways to also leverage that technology usage into a means to educate, to provide opportunities for students to, when they're on the bus, to access cloud environments, things like this. Do you think that could in the future become part of, as you called, a world-class education, is to integrate even further into technology?
I really do, and in fact, I don't see it as an either or, but more of a both and. There's just no question that we're going to need to keep leaning into technologies that can be transformative, but I also think that we need to be very conscientious about finding times to disengage from technology. And so, one of the other, if you will, components, I think, to a world-class education is taking the time to turn it off. And if you have the opportunity, like we do in Abbotsford in British Columbia, get outside, breathe in the air, learn from the land, get some physical activity, exercise. Those are key pieces. And again, they may not sound future-oriented, but I think we need to hang on to those pieces as we continue to move into this brave new world.
I really enjoy that, because I think this is the first time that we're kind of hearing the balanced approach, right, Dave? So it's not something, I think, because of maybe the cultural context, the technological context, difference between countries, but it's also really refreshing to hear just, a part of a balanced approach towards tech is not being on your tech
having that
so
downtime.
Much. Yeah,
the downtime, pretty vital as well. I'd like to ask you both, a lot more questions, but it is time for us to listen to another song. This time, not a Canadian artist, but a Korean artist who spent some time in Canada.
That's right, and fell in love with one city in particular. So we'll be back after this track by Big Naughty. It is Vancouver.
listening to GFN in Gwangju and Yeosu.
안녕하세요. 광주 기후에너지진흥원 김현진 연구원입니다. 광주 기후에너지진흥원은 2045 탄소중립 도시 광주를 실현하기 위해 기후와 환경 그리고 에너지에 대한 종합적인 연구와 환경교육에 앞장서는 기후위기 대응 전문 기관입니다. 탄소 중립이란 대기 중 온실가스 농도가 인간의 활동에 의해 더 이상 증가되지 않도록 배출량을 최대한 줄이고 흡수량을 늘려 순 배출량이 0이 되도록 하는 것을 뜻합니다. 광주는 매년 건물과 수송에서 온실가스 배출량을 70% 이상 배출하고 있습니다. 탄소 중립과 온실가스 감축을 위해 우리가 생활하고 있는 건물에서 에너지 사용량을 절감하고 친환경 자동차를 이용하는 녹색 생활 실천을 함께 해보는 것은 어떨까요?
How about practicing a green lifestyle by reducing energy consumption in our daily lives and using eco-friendly vehicles to achieve carbon neutrality and reduce greenhouse gas emissions? 2045, a carbon-neutral energy independent city of Gwangju. This campaign is brought to you by GFN.
광주 시민의 영어 고민, GFN 광주 영어 방송이 해결해 드립니다. 광주 시민 영어 향상 프로젝트 광주 톡톡. 지금 카카오톡에서 GFN 광주 영어 방송을 친구 추가하시면 쉽고 유용한 영어 학습 콘텐츠를 무료로 발송해 드립니다. 친구 탭 클릭, 아이디로 추가 클릭, GFN 987을 검색하세요. GFN 987. 잊지 말고 친구 추가하세요. 자세한 사항은 광주 영어방송 홈페이지에서 확인 바랍니다. 광주 시민 영어 향상 프로젝트 광주 톡톡.
SNS 매너가 무너진 세상. SNS 매너 권법을 익혀라. 조상권. 타인의 얼굴을 보호하는 스티커 매너. 저작권. 합법적인 음원 체크. 영화 작품 유료 폰트 등을 함부로 쓰지 않는 매너. 상표권. 상표 대용 판매는 불법. 비매너. 이것이 SNS 고수의 매너 권법. 매너를 지켜야 SNS가 즐거워요. 국익광고협의회.
You're listening to GFN 98.7 FM in Gwangju and 93.7 FM in Yeosu. The time is now 1 p.m.
Love there with Steal the Show. Welcome back to the show. Here I am joined by Dave as well as Mr. Nozick, representative, the superintendent of the Abbotsford School District in BC, and also Dr. Phil Laird, who is the vice president of Trinity Western University. And we're having an in-depth talk today all about education in Canada and the different policies, challenges, and maybe possibilities of education in Canada. And Dave, I know you have another pressing question that you'd like to ask.
Yeah, we are of course here in the Mi래교육 Festival or Fair, talking about jobs in the future. And in fact, you mentioned before about how we are entering a new age whereby the AI may take away some jobs, but may also create others. I don't know if you know, but actually directly in front of our studio here, there is a huge job fair where students have been able to visit and receive on-site counseling, things like this. I'm curious if you have any perspectives on this area when it comes to Canada and this development to change into the generation, new generation of technology.
Yeah, I think what we're finding in education, higher education, is an intense focus on outcomes, and especially career outcomes for students who attend universities. So parents are very interested. What job are they going to get? What's the future of that job? And students are increasingly choosing their university degrees around potential and future jobs. But we know that that landscape is constantly changing. Many have said that children born today, 65% of the children born today will work in careers that do not yet exist. So that's how fast the world is changing. And so what we do find in terms of the impact of on universities is a real decline in students studying humanities, social sciences, the arts, and a movement towards students studying in professional programs like business, nursing, healthcare, engineering, education, and also in STEM-related fields that are technologically driven. And so those become major changes and trends that universities are trying to adapt to today, both in Canada and all around the world.
So that is a trend. Do you think that trend is a positive trend? As in, do you think that reflects what is really going to be needed by the job market in the future? Or do you think it's more of a fear-based kind of trend, worry about getting employment in the future?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's a question that educators debate and argue about. And the truth is that the skills that are employable today are very different from the skills that were employable 20 and 30 years ago. Even things like studying humanities, the arts and history, although there's relevance in those careers, I believe most educators need to go through sort of a renaissance of understanding how to tie those disciplines into the kinds of careers of the future. And I believe that change is going to happen out of necessity in universities in the next number of years. But I do believe that what we find from liberal arts education is that there's a sort of a slow burn, we'll call it, of the adaptive skills of a liberal arts education. Most people will, those skills become increasingly important throughout their careers and later on in their lives. The challenge is a lot of parents and young people can't wait for those skills to be in high demand, and they're looking. And so we're really working at Trinity Western University to marry sort of long-term skills that equip students for life of success and competence and character with more job-ready skills upon graduation that give them an entry point and an on-ramp into their careers.
So it's kind of having your cake and eating it too, you know, being able to do something now when you graduate to get by, and also having those critical thinking skills that will serve you down the line as well. Yeah. I know that my dad was particularly disappointed when I went into a liberal arts degree. So Dad, see, this is what you can do with a liberal arts degree.
It was worth it.
Yeah,
You
it was
wouldn't
worth
be
it,
here
right?
today if it
Here I
hadn't been
am.
for that.
Yes, successful. All right, Mr. Nozick, do you think you could talk a little bit about maybe some of the issues being faced by K to 12? What are kind of the big things on the plate in that area of education in Canada?
Oh, there are no big issues in K to 12.
Oh, there you go.
I'm being playful, obviously. Yeah, a couple of things come to mind. You know, maybe I'll start with Canada's immigration policy in the last couple of years has been particularly ambitious. And I think, as people know, we're a wonderfully rich and diverse country.
Multicultural.
And multicultural. And I said at the beginning of the show, you know, I think 87 languages in our school district now. But we have a looming, in fact, we have a now labor shortage. And so our demographic is such that, people, of my generation and a little bit older, as they exit jobs, there just isn't a birth rate that supports replacing these jobs. And so hence the immigration policy, which is a good thing generally speaking. But what it does mean is that we have newcomers arriving from fascinating parts of the globe on a weekly basis. And so that does put some pressures on our schools to continue to sort of welcome families and individuals, some of whom are coming, from backgrounds where there may be issues with poverty, even trauma. And so this is the wonderful thing about Canada. This is kind of part of how we roll, so to speak. But it is a pressure on the system, absolutely. But I think we're making some excellent strides, and multiculturalism is nothing new for us.
Wow.
Sure.
It's a great insight for our Korean listeners. I don't know if you know, but a lot of talk about introducing more immigration policy to Korea and potentially something in the future that we might see. In fact, Lindsay, you were telling me about some of the statistics relevant to immigration in Canada.
I was just reading an old copy of Maclean's that my parents sent me, and it had the statistic that in 2022, over 1 million people immigrated to Canada.
Yes.
And that's on a scale that's just unprecedented. I think especially for our Korean listeners, we have about 50 million people in Korea, and I think about now we're at what, 32, 33 million in Canada? Am I off?
Closer to 40.
I think it's closer to 40.
Oh my gosh.
It's been
Look
too
at how
long.
it's been
39
too
or
long.
40, yeah.
But anyways, so to imagine kind of an influx of immigrants into Korea
Sure.
of that level is really unthinkable. But getting a little bit local, the province that we're currently in now, Jeollanam-do, actually has the highest rate of multicultural, what are called multicultural or blended culture families here in Korea. So I think very relevant to Korean education as well, although until now the Korean education system hasn't had to grapple so much with different cultures mixing together in the bigger Korean society, but definitely going to have to in the future, I think.
I mean, we've actually heard from other experts that have joined us this week about how technology has been used in the classroom to mitigate some of the issues presented by different linguistic requirements. I'm curious about if you have had any experiences with, I think you said 87 languages.
Yes.
Are you using technology in some way to make it less of a challenge for students to adapt to the environment?
We absolutely are, and certainly, the use of some of the digital translator tools have been around for a while, but I had some fun the other day showcasing to our school district leadership some tools where I actually took a video that I had made when I joined the district 11 months ago, and using some AI tools, and we've all seen these, but suddenly I could hit play and you could hear me and in my voice, and I was speaking in Hindi and in Spanish as just quick examples. And so I think in short order, we're going to need to take advantage of those kind of tools and be able to communicate directly with our complex, diverse community.
And speaking of higher education, then, have you seen any impacts on higher education to do with immigration?
Sure. We've had massive impacts on higher education, and in fact, the government of Canada has changed some of its policies around immigration recently to address the large influx of students who have come from all around the world to study in Canada. And that change has resulted in provincial governments having to issue provincial attestation letters to recognize students that are being given permission to come into the country. And it's really, in some ways, challenged the system, but the government really is trying to ensure that the students who do come to Canada have a good experience, receive the education that they've paid for and are coming to get, and have a realistic opportunity to be part of the workforce in Canada. And so that's really the goal.
Has it been successful so far in reaching those goals?
Well, I think it's early days. The policy came into effect in March, so we're 2 months or 3 months into the policy. And we're all adjusting to the policy and trying to make sure the communication is effective in all of our bases of recruitment around the world. But it looks like some of the changes that the government had hoped would take place, like our inflation rate starting to drop, is really happening now, and housing is actually kind of moderating a little bit. Housing costs and rental prices. And so some of those effects are taking hold even in these early days.
Oh, okay. And so hopefully going forward, it will continue to be successful. And just
Yes.
definitely a lot of material that other countries who are just starting to see kind of those levels of immigration happening can maybe look towards Canada to see how it's gone so far, what kind of policies have been successful and which ones maybe not so much, right? I'm sure there's a lot to learn, eh, Dave?
That's absolutely right. Well, you're joining us still for Canada Hour. We're going to continue that theme with some Canadian music. Another of Canadians' finest musicians, exports, Celine Dion this time with Power of Love. Dion there, Power of Love, a request song from Lindsay. I didn't know you were a big Celine Dion fan, Lindsay.
What can I say? You know, I feel like you have some obligations to your motherland, and that's one of them.
I thought she was from Switzerland.
But what?
She
No, she
represented-
just competed as the representative
So
in
no connection with
Eurovision.
Switzerland?
No, don't get it.
I
Don't get it
apologise.
twisted.
I
She
apologise.
is Canada's songbird.
Well,
No,
we can
that's-
say we are definitely, well, I'm joined by 3 Canadians. You're joined by 2 fellow Canadians.
Yes,
We're having a great
yes.
time, great insight from our 2 guests that are joining us, especially for the Korea Glocal Education Fair 2024. That's Dr. Phil Laird and Mr. Sean Nosek. It's been a great opportunity for us and for our listeners to hear from you, but let's take it a little bit more light now for the final few minutes. I'm curious about how your experience here in Korea has been. You've been here for how long? How long has it been since you arrived here?
I arrived on Saturday,
Uh-huh.
and as I said, spent a few days in Seoul,
Sure.
and then made my way over here. But one of the cool adventures that I was able to go on was actually to visit one of the middle schools. So I was in Gwangyang,
Oh.
a middle school, and I have to say that it was heartwarming to actually see how much we share in common. So the sense that wherever you go in the world, I think students are students. I saw a lot of joy. I saw a lot of curiosity. I was even given, I think, 40 minutes to engage with was it a grade 7 or a grade 7 and 8, 7 and 9 class. And so we had a wonderful conversation. I was impressed with their level of English, and even had lunch in the school cafeteria. So we had a great Korean meal, met some parents, and a wonderful experience.
Big shock, eh? Like the first time I had
There's
lunch.
the Canadian in you.
in the cafeteria, you know, I just tried to imagine kids back home having to sit down and everybody eat the same meal, at the same
meal.
time. And I just thought it would never fly back home. But did you notice anything that was particularly different to you in terms of maybe the way the school was organized or where the priorities seemed to be? Was there anything that kind of stood out?
Yeah, you know, I would say they were well structured around the different grades, each grade on a different floor.
Yes, generally, yeah.
Which isn't, that can certainly happen in Canadian schools. And I have to say, the school was clean.
Oh, do you know how they get it that clean? After school, all of the students have to spend 20 minutes cleaning their own classrooms, bathrooms, and hallways.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yes.
Your students would be interested in doing that?
Yes, do you
Committing
think that would
20
work?
They might not be, but I would be.
It really
give them no
teaches them.
choice.
They have no choice. They
Obligated to do it.
Obligated to do it. They're assigned different assignments, and yes, every day after school for 15, 20 minutes they'll do it. So now you know.
Yes,
Yeah.
it promotes a
good
sense
tip.
of
I'm gonna take
community.
that.
Yeah,
with me.
take that one back. That would be good. How about you, Dr. Laird? What have your experiences been like when you've been in Korea?
Yeah, we've had a great experience in Korea with some of my colleagues from Trinity Western University. And some of the more memorable experiences, I was thinking about yours, I actually did visit a high school. I visited a foreign languages high school.
Oh, okay.
And was a public school that teaches, I think, 4 foreign languages, English, French, German, and Spanish, I think, are the 4. Or Chinese, Chinese. And it was a great experience, and I was able to give a lecture to students, and they were following the lecture in English, and so it was very impressive to see the competence and capability of the students here in a Korean environment to learn English and be very competent in English. I also had the opportunity to visit the Gwangju Democracy Demonstration Memorial Site.
Yes, the May 18th, what we call 5.18,
hosted by the mayor and the city council of Gwangju. So we went and we laid flowers on the memorial, which was a very poignant moment. One of the things that's really interesting as sort of a transnational for me is that, you know, you hear about the macro history of countries, you know, the Korean War, and so you kind of see countries in a certain lens, and then you come to the country and you hear about all of the history and the struggle and the transitions that have taken place that are unique to that country, and in many cases unique to a specific area.
Yes.
And so that gives you a real perspective on Korea, on the struggle for democracy in Korea, and how far the Korean people have come when we look at the multinational corporations that are Korean that have really transformed the world. Yeah.
And just a big shout out to Gwangju, our radio station, Gwangju 영어 방송, based in Gwangju, going out across the country. But shout out to Gwangju there.
Shout out to Gwangju, of course. And yes, it's been a real delight spending time with both of you today, but we are actually coming to the end of our time together. Before we finish, though, are there any final words that you would like to share with our listeners, with the viewers, and with the audience here at the event?
I would just love to thank the beautiful people of Korea. I've been treated so well. What a wonderful culture, wonderful country.
Thank you very much.
And I just want to say thank you again, and I want to tell everyone to keep learning, keep asking questions and trying to figure things out, because that's the way together we're going to help make this world a better place. So.
Great to get such insight today, so much positivity. That's been something that's really had an impact on me. It's great to see how open you guys are to the changes in the world.
Not only today, but I do have to say that even just walking around the event, one of the things that has struck me is first how excited all the students are here. And as educators, we're all aware that getting students excited about something, like that is a goal in itself, right? So, and number two, watching all of the educators and education-related people having such a great time. You can see the passion on everyone's face as they network, as they meet new people, have new experiences. So, anyways, thank you both for coming on the show, being a part of it.
Yeah, that's Mr. Sean Nosek. He's the Superintendent of Schools for the Abbotsford School District in BC, and Dr. Phil Lowe, the Vice President of Trinity Western University, also in BC. Thank you so much for joining us. It's time for us to listen to a song, I think, Lindsay.
That's right. We'll be back after this. It's Rise with Get a Guitar.
Everyone's so
With a once strict drug regulation system, South Korea, known for its drug-free nation, is facing a sudden surge in drug crimes. This trend, fueled by a rise in domestic drug users, poses a significant risk to our society. To protect our safety and happiness, collective efforts are needed to decisively combat drug use. Let's aim for a strong leap towards a drug-free nation through robust enforcement, rehabilitation, treatment, and preventive education.
안녕하세요. 광주 광산구 보건소장 김옥현입니다. 최근 사회적 문제로 대두된 마약, 호기심으로 스트레스 받아서 또래 집단에서 소외되지 않기 위해 어느새 마약은 소리 없이 우리 주변에 스며들어 행복한 일상을 위협하고 있습니다. 광산구 보건소에서는 마약으로부터 나와 가족, 더 나아가 지역사회를 지키기 위해 마약 예방 캠페인과 생애 주기별 중독 예방 교육을 실시하고 있습니다. 우리 사회가 마약으로부터 보다 안전해지도록 광주 시민들께서도 마약 근절을 위해 많은 관심 부탁드립니다.
This campaign is brought to you by GFN.
특허 기술과 영업 비밀이 유출됐어요.
기술 경찰에게 문의하세요.
제 디자인이 도용당했어요.
기술 경찰을 통해 보호받으세요.
2021년 본격 출범된 특허청 기술 경찰. 특허나 영업 비밀, 디자인 등의 지식 재산을 침해당한 경우 특허청에 신고하고
기술 경찰을 통해 든든하게 보호받으세요. 우리나라의 소중한 지식 재산들이 제대로 보호될 수 있도록 기술 경찰이 늘 앞장서서 노력하겠습니다.
이 캠페인은 특허청과 한국지식재산보호원이 함께합니다.
Back to the show, listeners. You're tuned into our Glocal Edu-Show. And now it is time for our daily quiz.
That's right. We told you guys what the quiz was at the beginning of the show, but we'll give you one more chance to get involved. If you want to win some great prizes, all you gotta do is know the answer to today's quiz question. 그럼 오늘의 퀴즈 바로 나갑니다. Are you ready, Dave?
Yes, I'm ready, Lindsay. Let us know what it is.
Okay, here it is. 요즘 같은 디지털 시대에 미래 교육의 핵심 기술을 꼽자면 인공지능이 다는 그 1순위입니다.
네, 맞죠. And in English, we refer to this thing that you just talked about as AI.
That's right. 인공지능 영어로는 AI. 그러면 today's quiz question is AI는 어떤 단어의 약자일까요?
네, what exactly does though or do those two characters A and I stand for?
줄임말이죠.
네, 그렇죠.
So, all right, we'll give you some options. Does AI mean A,
artistic intelligence,
B,
arithmetic intelligence,
or C,
artificial intelligence?
That's right. We're looking for what does AI mean. One more time, we'll give you some options. A,
artistic intelligence,
B,
arithmetic intelligence,
or C,
artificial intelligence.
All right, Dave. So, if you know the answer to today's quiz question, how can you get in touch with us?
Very simple, Lindsay. All our listeners or viewers need to do is send in the answer via text to sharp 9870. That's sharp 9870. We would love to see lots of you guys sending in the correct answer, so do feel free to do so.
That's right, because we have some great prizes that we would love to give away, and you can see them right in front of us right now, right, Dave?
네, 맞습니다. We'd love to give you guys the chance to get one of these great prizes that we have prepared for you guys. So again, just tell us, what does AI mean? Send it into sharp 9870. 맞죠, Lindsay?
That's right. 정답을 맞추신 분에게는 엄마의 마음을 담아 전연 유래 성분으로 만든 순수주의 세제 하어스에서 아기, 어른 모두 사용 가능한 고농축 EM 세탁 세제 세트를, 그리고
영양 만점, 하루 활력 충전, 셀틴에서 조 슈퍼푸드 남해 흑마늘로 만든 활력 확신 블랙 다이몬드 흑마늘 젤리를 드립니다.
That's right. So to get your hands on those, just send us a message to sharp 9870. But it is time for our next segment now, right, Dave?
Yes, it is. We are always really excited to bring this segment to you because it is our chance to get out of this studio and walk around the event site that is in front of us. And this is called On the Mic. K Edu Reporter. We've been bringing you some of the vibrant sounds and sights from the event site. Today, no different, Lindsay.
That's right. And today, actually, speaking of difference, we've seen a little bit of a shift in the fair today, right?
That's
so
true.
until now, we've seen so many groups of students being bussed in together. But today, we're seeing a lot of families, right, Dave?
Yeah, it seems that the change of audience has been something pretty visible, but still a lot of people here having a great time. Just FYI, of course, we're here in Yosu for the Korea Glocal Education Fair 2024. It runs until tomorrow, so if you're listening today, thinking about what to do tomorrow, well, definitely think no more, just come to Yosu. Come and see us as well. We're broadcasting from the center of the site. And you specifically went and checked out one of the new events, I think, Lindsay?
Yes, that's right. So I'd love to introduce something that I visited in person yesterday.
Okay.
바로 Give me a drum roll. There you go. 이중 언어 말하기 대회입니다. The bilingual speaking contest.
네.
So it actually took place yesterday, which was Friday the 31st, and I was on site to see some of the very talented students who were taking part in it.
Wow, I'm sure that was really fascinating. I'm sure you and I, a lot of our listeners as well, interested in learning languages. Definitely something when we heard about for the first time a few days ago, I was very curious about. So did you have a chance to meet with somebody to take a closer look?
Met a couple people there, Dave, and I just want to emphasize again just how talented the students who are taking part in this are. So the concept of this competition is that the students say a speech in Korean and then also in their mother tongue. So a lot of these students are actually 다문화 가족.
I see.
So in their homes, they might speak more than one language, right? Dave, what language do you speak at home?
Predominantly Korean, actually, believe it or not. Lindsay.
Yeah. So in our house, we do a little bit of a mix of English and Korean. So these students are the same. They would have languages from their home countries being spoken at home. So they would give the speech in both languages. Just incredibly talented. But to explain a little bit more about this event, I spoke to Mr. Park Byung-young, who is an educational researcher from the Jeonnam Office of Education. He was at the contest site. Let's hear what he has to say.
네, 안녕하세요. 저는 전라남도 교육청 국제교육원에서 이중언어 사업을 담당하고 있는 교육연구사 박병영입니다. 이중언어 말하기 대회는 다문화 학생들의 이중언어 학습을 장려하고 지속적인 강점 개발을 도모하기 위해서 마련된 대회입니다. 초등부와 중등부로 나뉘어서 진행되었고요. 그리고 초등부는 자유주제를, 그리고 중등부는 나의 진로 계획이라는 주제로 한국어로 발표 후 동일한 내용을 모국어로 발표하는 방식으로 진행되었습니다. 이번 대회는 전년 대회와 달리 전라남도 교육청과 경상북도 교육청이 공동 주최하는 대회로 전남의 친구들과 경북의 친구들이 한 자리에서 총 14개의 다양한 언어로 뜨거운 경연을 펼친 모습이 매우 인상 깊었습니다. 총 14개의 언어로 경연을 펼치다 보니까 희소한 언어 심사위원님들을 섭외하는 것이 좀 어려움이 있었습니다. 섭외하는 데 어려움이 있었습니다. 저희들 이제 평가 기준은 크게 3가지 영역을 평가합니다. 그래서 내용 구성, 그리고 언어 표현, 그리고 태도, 이렇게 이제 3가지 영역을 평가하고 있기 때문에 내용이 얼마만큼 풍성하게 잘 구성이 되었는지, 그리고 이제 발음이나 어휘 이런 것들이 얼마만큼 정확하게 전달이 되었는지, 그리고 마지막 태도에 얼마만큼 자신감 있게 발표를 했는지, 이런 부분들이 평가에 적용되었습니다. 초등부 대상 수상자 1명과 중등부 대상 수상자 1명은 11월에 예정된 교육부에서 주최하고 있는 제12회 전국 이중언어 말하기 대회에 전남 대표로 출전하게 됩니다. 그래서 그 자리에서 또 전국의 각지에서 모인 친구들과 함께 또 한 번 뜨거운 경연을 펼칠 예정입니다.
So that was Park Byung-young 연구사, educational researcher, explaining a little bit about what the bilingual competition was all about. You could hear there that there was 초등부, elementary school students division, and also 중등부, which was the middle and high school students. They had a little bit of different topics.
Yeah.
So it was a free topic for the elementary school students, and for middle and high school students, they talked about their career plans.
Yeah, it sounded really fascinating. In fact, as you talked about, the way that it works is that they present in Korean first, and then they do the same speech once again in their second language, or I guess it might be their first, but in a second language in addition to Korean.
Yes, and so the competition is based on how similar those two speeches are. So if they are accurate translations of both speeches.
Yeah, and he spoke about during that little clip that we heard, and I was wondering about this before, it must have been particularly difficult to recruit judges for some of the rare languages. In fact, they said that there were 14 different languages that were assessed here.
Yes, that's right. And so I was also thinking about how did they do that? So, for example, if your mother tongue is a language that is not spoken in Korea at all or very rarely spoken, you need somebody who speaks that language fluently to assess whether or not that was
Right.
a fluent speech, right?
Absolutely, but it seems that they did make a lot of effort, just like we've seen throughout the events over the past 4 days, and it seems to have been pretty successful. They evaluated the students based on their language, how they spoke, how clear they were, their pronunciation, what's more, and they chose one winner from the elementary division and one from the middle high school division, and those 2 students will represent Jeollanam-do at the 12th National Bilingual Speaking Contest, which will be hosted in November by the Ministry of Education.
That's right. We should also mention that this year's competition was a collaboration between the Jeollanam-do Office of Education and the Gyeongsangbuk-do Office of Education. So there were students from both regions participating in this year's competition.
Wow, sounds wonderful. We're going to listen to a song. We'll be back to talk a little bit more about that after this one by Treasure. It is Darari. That was Dararida by Treasure. Before that song, Lindsay, you were telling us about the bilingual speaking contest that's taking place here in Yeosu. I'm so curious about the winners. Do you happen to have any info about that?
Yes, of course. We spoke to the winner of the middle and high school division. Her name is Kim Ah-yeon. She's going to tell us a little bit about her speech and what she did to prepare for it.
안녕하세요. 저는 자흥고등학교 2학년 김아연입니다. 저 일본 이름은 사네다나코라고 합니다. 잘 부탁드립니다. 제 진로 계획인데 그 진로 계획을 말하기 전에 제가 다문화 가정이라서 힘들었던 점이랑 제가 뭘 했었는지 이야기를 한 후에 제 꿈을 말하고 제가 어떻게 할 건지 그리고 제 다문화 가정이라는 것에 대해 제 생각을 이야기했어요. 자기 전에 무조건 한 번씩은 연습하고 주말에는 이제 학원 안 가는 날에는 따로 이제 부모님이랑 같이 발음 괜찮은지 계속 연습만 계속했던 것 같아요. 아무래도 제가 한국에서 살다 보니까 듣는 언어는 한국어여가지고 일본어를 어떻게 발음하면은 이제 맞는지 틀린지를 구별하는 게 좀 힘들었어요.
So there you go, a little bit from Kim Ah-yeon. Of course, she is a second grader in high school, so high school grade 2, telling us a little bit about what she wanted to talk about in her winning speech and also how she prepared for the speech competition.
Yeah, it seemed that she had a few challenges and she talked about those in her speech, especially as being part of a multicultural family. The efforts to overcome these challenges was also part of her speech, as well as an introduction of future dreams, the things that she wants to focus on moving forward, and also her own thoughts on multicultural families too.
That's right, and she worked really hard for the speech contest. She practiced daily. She also practiced with her parents for her pronunciation. And of course, since she's living in Korea and every day we just hear Korean, the Japanese pronunciation. So she did the second half of her speech in Japanese. The Japanese pronunciation was the most challenging bit. But Dave, I'm sure you are very curious to hear what the actual winning speech sounded like.
Can we listen to it?
I have it recorded for you. All right. So we're going to hear second grade high school student Kim Ah-yeon with her winning speech from the bilingual speaking competition.
안녕하세요. 저는 자흥고등학교 2학년 김아연입니다. 저희 집은 아빠는 한국어로, 엄마는 일본어로 대해야 합니다. 식탁에는 한국 요리와 일본 요리가 함께 놓이며 책장에는 한국 책과 일본 책이 섞여 있습니다. 저는 학교에서는 한글, 집에서는 히라가나 등을 공부하였습니다. 그렇게 저는 일화에 능통하게 되어 작년 일본어 능력 시험 1급에 합격하였습니다. 여기까지 이야기만 들었을 때는 저를 부러워하시는 분들도 있을지도 모르겠지만 다문화 가정이라는 것은 저의 최대의 약점이었습니다. 초등학생 때 다문화 가정이라는 이유로 친구들과 잘 어울리지 못해 외롭고 힘들었습니다. 엄마를 정말 사랑하지만 엄마가 한국인이었으면 좋았을 텐데 하며 엄마 앞에서 눈물을 보인 적이 한두 번이 아니었습니다. 그러나 일어 공부를 계속하면서 일본인 친구도 생기고 더 다양한 경험을 하며 내가 살아갈 세계와 내 미래를 위한 선택지가 한국에 국한되지 않고 더 넓어지는 것을 느꼈습니다. 그런 저의 꿈은 애견 테라피스트입니다. 한국에서는 많이 알려지지 않았으나 일본에서는 자격증을 취득할 수 있고 2023년부터 동물 간호사의 국가 자격증도 생겼습니다. 고등학교 졸업 후에 일본 대학을 진학하고 동물 간호사, 애견 테라피스트 등 다양한 동물 관련 자격증을 따고 경험을 쌓은 뒤에 한국에서 애견 테라피스트로서 일하고 싶습니다. 이러한 저의 꿈은 제가 다문화 가정 자녀로서 가진 강점을 활용해 더 큰 세상에 나아갈 수 있게끔 동기부여해주는 소중한 것이고 이를 이루기 위해 최선을 다할 것입니다. 끝까지 들어주셔서 감사합니다. こんにちは。私はチャンフン高校2年、佐々奈々子です。私の家は父とは韓国語、母とは日本語で話します。食卓には韓国料理と日本料理があり、本棚には韓国の本と日本の本が並んでいます。私は学校ではハングル、 家ではひらがななどを勉強しました。このような生活をしながら、去年日本語能力試験1級に合格することができました。これだけ聞いたら私を羨ましいと思う方もいるかもしれませんが、多文化家庭であることは私の最大の弱点でした。小学生の時、私は多文化家庭ということで、友達と関係がうまくいかず、孤独でとても辛かったからです。母のことは大好きでしたが、韓国人だったらよかったのに、と母の前で泣いたことは一度ではありませんでした。でも、日本語の勉強を続けていく中で、日本人の友達ができたり、様々な体験もできて、韓国だけではない私の世界と未来の選択肢が広がるのを感じました。そんな私の今の夢は、ドッグセラピストになることです。韓国ではあまり知られていませんが、日本では資格を取ることもでき、2023年から動物看護師の国家資格もできました。高校を卒業したら日本の大学に進学し、動物看護師やドッグセラピストやいろいろな動物関係の資格を取って経験を積んで、韓国でドッグセラピストとして仕事をしたいです。多文化家庭であることは、私をより大きい世界へ飛び出すことができるようにしてくれる私の最大の強みです。私にしか叶えることができない私の夢に向かって、これからも一生懸命頑張っていきたいと思います。ご清聴ありがとうございました。
And that was Kim Ah-yeon, the second grade high school student, with her winning speech from the 이중언어 말하기 대회, the bilingual speaking contest. So you heard her there, first saying her speech in Korean and then in a very beautiful Japanese rendition.
I'm not sure how good your Japanese is, Lindsay.
A little bit rusty, a little bit rusty.
Yeah, I would
probably
say it was
worse
very
than
good.
yours.
Not sure about that, but I would say that she sounded absolutely fantastic. If I hadn't known better, I would have been totally convinced that she was a Japanese native speaker. I think she is.
Yes.
She's speaking 2 languages. She spoke about how at home she has a father with whom she speaks Korean and her mother with whom she speaks in Japanese. And so by virtue of that, she has learned both languages, as we just heard, totally fluently. So impressive.
I love how she expressed it. She said, on our table, we have Japanese foods and also Korean foods. In our bookshelves, we have Korean books and also Japanese books. So a real 다문화 가족, multicultural family, right?
Incredible, incredible. I think that she is a real credit to her family there, demonstrating in that sense. The benefits of growing up in a bilingual household, I think, might be challenging in many ways, but also clearly for her to have been able to speak both languages to such an incredible level is fantastic. And she was, of course, very much worthy in winning that prize, I think, yesterday.
Certainly, definitely. And she also spoke about her dream of being a pet therapist. So she talked about how she wanted to attend university in Japan and get a variety of different certifications that will allow her to conduct therapy with animals.
Yeah, really fantastic. She's actually said that she learned about being a pet therapist while she was learning Japanese. So I think it's almost like that thing that you've been saying throughout this week, Lindsay, 일석이조. She not only was able to improve her Japanese ability, but she was also able to find this this new avenue in which she wants to travel down in her future.
Definitely, definitely. Now, Dave, you have a little bit of background in linguistics and teaching language. So what do you think? You know, I think it's a hot topic these days, bilingual language learning. Obviously, in this global generation, a lot of parents are interested in how they can ensure that their children are able to communicate in different languages. What do you think about growing up in the home with more than one language? Is that a good way to become bilingual in the future?
That's a really great question, Lindsay. I think that in the past, a lot of parents might have thought that having 2 languages spoken in the house might present challenges to the children. But actually, I would say that now the way of thinking is the opposite. And in fact, yes, it might be a little bit later that other linguistic skills develop. But ultimately, for a child to be surrounded by 2 languages whilst they're growing up, that's so beneficial. And ultimately, if a child has that opportunity, then they might be able to grow up to be just like Kim Ah-yeon, who we just heard, fluent native speakers of 2 languages. And we all know in today's global society that the ability to speak more than one language at such a level is truly invaluable. So I think that it is a fantastic opportunity for children to be given multiple different language inputs while they're growing up at home, Lindsay.
Yes, definitely. And so not just for 다문화 가족 who will kind of have that situation on their own at home, but for any family out there looking to maybe boost their kids' language development, speaking more than one language at home. And also, of course, children love to copy their parents. So if parents get out there and try incorporating different languages at home, maybe that's a good step forward towards speaking in a bilingual fashion.
Absolutely right. I think we also heard very much the same sort of opinion from Kim Ayeon there. Congratulations to her once again for winning that competition. I think it was very worthy also to all of the other participants in that competition that was held yesterday, the bilingual speaking contest. Thank you so much for bringing that for me as well, Lindsay.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm looking forward to what you're going to be bringing tomorrow.
Yeah, for the final day of the events, of course, we'll be back with another show. Before we finish today's show, though, Lindsay, we should tell our listeners the answer to the quiz question.
Yes, what was today's question, Dave?
It was a challenging one, perhaps. What does AI mean? This
Yes.
줄임말.
That's right. We were looking for what does that stand for, the A and the I. What does it stand for? Dave, will you please put us out of our misery and let us know what was the answer to today's quiz?
It was artificial intelligence.
Oh, and you know what? We got several messages with the correct answer came into our radio station from a series of different listeners, right, Dave?
That's right. Listener 1082, listener 1829, and listener 7482. Thank you so much for sending in the messages. We actually heard from a few listeners that are here on site in Yeosu as well. We hope you're having a great time enjoying the festivities, if you will. We will be back here tomorrow, but for today, 네네, 아쉽지만 we're going to have to finish, I think, Lindsay.
That's right. But don't worry, you can join us from 12 to 2 p.m. until tomorrow, right here on GFN 98.7 FM in Gwangju, 101.3 FM in Seoul, and 90.5 FM in Busan. And coming up next after this is the Steve Hatherley Show reboot.
Yeah, we hope you have a great day, and we'll meet you back here at the same time tomorrow. 맞죠, Lindsay?
That's right. Dave, what do you think? What should our very last song of the day be?
It's got to be this one. We love this track. We know you will as well. We hope you'll join us again tomorrow. We'll finish up with this one by Yoda Either. It's Queen Ka.
Listening to GFN in Gwangju and Yeosu.
In May 2024, the world converges on Jeonnam. Presenting a vision for a sustainable future, 2024 Glocal Future Education Expo will unfold from May 29th to June 2nd at Yeosu World Expo Hall. with participation from 25 countries, including Canada, China, and Germany. The event will feature lectures by global scholars